Thanks for tuning in. This is Derek at DaewooRifleParts.com, another edition of DRPTV.com, whatever, YouTube, whatever. This is one I've been looking forward to doing for a while because there's a lot of questions that come in regarding minor variations during the import range of these firearms. The Daewoo rifles, as we've touched on a couple times, approximately 40 to 50,000 total. More DR200 than all the other types combined. 3 different importers importing those. 3 different importers importing the pre-band ones also. And at first I want to touch on the lower receiver markings. Now, lower receiver markings varied on these guns from the very early ones. I even saw a Canadian one marked KC10 with a model number marked KC10. I want to show you what they look like. If you come over here, the Made in Korea is always at the top. Now, these crooked serial numbers are very, very early. This is real early, and I'll show you some other stuff on the upper part of this weapon, which shows the very early origins of it. It's marked 5.56 millimeter, model numbers K2, and then this crooked declining angle number here, the serial number. This one was imported by Stoeger. This is Stoeger Industries, South Hackensack, New Jersey. What a god-awful place. If you're from there, you have my undying sympathies and boundless pity. As is typical of the pre-band Daewoos, it has a pistol grip very much like an AR with a cleaning kit inside, which may or may not have stuff in it. A lot of them were imported with empty cleaning kits. That even though it was marked 5.56 millimeter, this is a 1 in 12 rifle. The barrel is a 1 in 12 barrel, and it will not stabilize rounds more than 55 grains in weight. As we touched on a different video, this is one that was that the markings were changed. The Made in Korea is still there. The caliber has been changed to 5.56, and it's AR 100. You'll also find them marked 5.56 millimeter Max II, not Max 2, Max with 2 Roman numeral 1s, and those, almost all of those, as far as I can tell, were imported by Stoeger Industries. The other part of the later Stoegers, another weirdness about them, is that they have a sweep. They have a 2-headed arrow, and I don't have one in the shop right now to show you, but they have a 2-headed arrow with an arrow head on each side, which show you that the selector is supposed to sweep 180 degrees. This is a pre-89 rifle, so the selector sweeps 180 degrees the right way. Some of these other ones you'll notice I've changed to our 90 degree selector, just because, you know, if I wouldn't have developed the product if I didn't intend to use them on my own guns. So that's the lowers. And then when you move to the DR200s and 300s, by then all the numbering and everything was pretty standardized. You have your model number at the top, then your caliber RA, RB, RS, or RR serial ranges with everything from, you know, triple zeros and single digits to 6 digits. It doesn't seem to make any rhyme or reason. It's really hard, and these companies are all long gone out of business, and the people who imported them 20 plus years ago, even for the post-band guns, they don't even remember how many were imported. So keep in mind, just because your Daewoo rifle says 5.56 millimeter on it, does not necessarily mean that it will shoot 62 grain SS109 or M855 ammunition. A lot of times it won't, and so you have to pretty much eyeball it or do the old, you know, pull the jag through there with a thing on it, count the rotations or whatever you have to do. Some of the barrels are marked, some of the barrels are not. I can pretty much tell by looking down the bore. I've seen some of them were marked, but most of the ones, all of the ones actually I've got in the shop right now, they don't seem to say one way or the other, whether they're 12s or 7.2s, 7.2, 7.3. So let's go through the uppers, and I'll show you the differences between the uppers, and then I'll show you the differences in the bolt carrier units between the different types. This is the earliest type that I've ever seen. This is also the exact same type as the Canadian one that I got a bunch of pictures of. Now you'll notice this flat disc right here. The Daewoo rifle system has a convoluted rear sight set on the K2. This is such an early one that rather than having a short peep sight like this, which is the standard, This is probably imported about 1983. I'm just guessing. This is just me just kind of speculating here. Probably about 1983, probably about 1981 or 82, where it's got the big flip up and the top notch for close in work. You don't see too many like this. This is a very, very early rear sight assembly on this. It is interchangeable, so if you don't like it, you can always change it out with something else that we have on the shelf here. So you'll notice the flat disc here as opposed to the tapered one here, which is more like an angular type where it comes up gradually and then it's flat at the top. The other weird thing about these uppers, at least this particular forging, this type of forging with this flat disc, is that when you're talking about the rail sets, this is a Stormworks rail. We also sell this on DaewooRifleParts.com. This is a modified FAL rail that I got from DSA as a blem, and this is the now discontinued Daewoo Rifle Parts rail because, frankly, the Stormworks one is just a nicer product. But you'll notice that on these two types of forgings, this boss here, where well, let's show you on the DR200. This boss where the sights attach, these dome screws come out. There's a little bit of like orange thread lock on there. These will come all the way out, and then typically the scope mounts that we sell on the website or other people sell, or the long optics rail like you're seeing here on one of my original Daewoos, threads in. On these forgings, this boss is 90 thousandths approximately higher than this boss. So when you make something to fit, and it's supposed to fit the Daewoo rifles, as we learned when we first got into the making parts for Daewoo's business, we made a whole bunch of these, and none of them fit. The guys were sending them back, and they were all pissed off. They were like, hey, this doesn't fit. It's cocked up too high. It's inches down too low at the back. And that's because these very early upper receiver forgings have a differential dimension between here and meow. On the later ones, probably about 84 on through the end of the import, they are standardized. This distance, you can take a straight edge and put it between, once you have the screws out, of course, put it between here and here, and there's no differential between the two, or so little that it doesn't matter. So as a note, for future use, those of you who have pre-89 guns and want scope mounts or the handguard rail sets, if this is flat, these are differential, and we have to send you a custom modified scope mount or a custom modified top rail for your handguard set. You see, this one wasn't modified and it doesn't fit properly. The gap is larger at the back. I didn't do this. This is a customer's gun. You see, this gap is so much bigger than here, and it shrinks forward because this is taller than this dimension from the center line of the bore. So, moving on. Here's another one. Now, this rifle, I have to admit, this is one of my personal rifles, and I changed this. I actually scooped one out of a DR200 and changed it to the flippy lock. But you'll notice the thumb pad on this doesn't have a flippy lock. This little flippy lock, it looks like such a deceptively simple little safety device, right? And it works really, really well until you take it apart. Then it's probably one of the most aggravating, migraine-inducing, utter pains in the ass that you've ever had to deal with in your life, because there's a little tiny friggin' spring in there and a little tiny detent with a flat top, and it's all held together with a little tiny friggin' roll pin. Now, trying to get that all in there and lined up, and that hole lined up, and get that roll pin started, man, if you can do it less than a half hour, you're better than me, and I've done a bunch of them. They are a pain in the ass.
So where's the putting together a Ruger 22 pistol?
Well, I have those down pretty good. I know what not to mess with on those, so yeah.
You're a god.
Yeah, no, I do much better at those than I used to. It's actually one of the few pistols I've ever seen an experienced gunsmith smashed into itty-bitty pieces because he got so frustrated with it. He had totally bound up and just took it on the cement floor and just beat it and bought the customer a new one. I was like, wow, that was something. That was quite the little temper.
Sorry, the director digresses.
We're digressing? That's fine. It's totally fine. So anyway, I'd ask you to ignore the handguard sets and the variations, because we have a bunch of different Daewoos in here. So to recap, the flat thing means these are different. If you need an optics rail, handguard rail set, or whatever from us, let us know you have that, because it will not fit and we have to modify it. Let's move to the newer ones. The newer ones have more standardized. This is the more standardized commercial one. Even though it's got the bayonet lug, the post band one, of course, doesn't. You can see them side by side. It has the slightly product improved with the longer plunger gas plug and blah blah blah. These uppers are the same. The uppers are exactly the same. All the mounts fit between the last few years, probably the last 3 or 4 years of K2 Air 100 Max 2. It's all the same gun, like I said, just different importers. And the DR200s, which vastly outnumber them. So they have the flippy lock, they have the same equidistant height screw bosses. Everything fits. All the handguard stuff fits. Everything fits in between those two types. These two types are the ones that give you a hard time. Now here's the really cool one. Now you have to ignore the extended gas plug. We'll do a video on extended gas plugs as compared to DR200 and K2 gas plugs at a later time. But this is really cool. I don't know if you remember on another video I showed you the legendary nub. I've seen so many of these sanded off, and guys didn't know what they were for and didn't like them, and it just irritated them. Just to show you exactly what I'm talking about, this little guy here. Hello, little guy. We love District 9. That little guy there. Well, what does that little guy there do other than aggravate the hell out of people who don't know what it is or don't know what it does? On the military issue rifle, which I happen to have a post-dealer sample select fire Daewoo K2. On the military rifle, that little notch, that little titty there is a tritium globe. There's a tritium globe pressed into that. You can see it right down in there in the hole. Why would there be a tritium globe there, you might ask? Well, that's because back here on the back, there's a great big peep sight. I don't know how much that actually helps in real dark, because anybody who's ever shot peep sights in the dark know they're absolutely freaking worthless, because you have to have light come in through here so you can center your blade or dot or whatever, and that doesn't always work out so good in the dark. So that's the difference. That's why that little thing exists, and this is actually this sight blade and this peep sight are actually peculiar to the military issue guns, or military guns made for export to military units only. It's got its own spring in there that, of course, is impossible to get because of what it is. I'll show you one more difference in the uppers, and then we're going to go to the differences in the bolt carriers. You'll notice the windage on the DR200, K2, Max 2, etc. is your typical AR-15, A1, M16A1 type. The same tool, you can use the same tool, or you can use a cartridge tip, which was exactly how it was designed by Eugene Stoner, to use a cartridge tip to do the windage. Now the elevation is a totally different mechanism right here. That uses a step screw and a little castle bolt right here. And you can raise the thing up to 0 it to 2.5, and it's got markings on it. 2.5 is obviously 250 meters, 400 meters, 500 meters, and 600 meters, which is great, right? Well, apparently they didn't think that with a thumbhole stock you should be able to shoot to 400 meters, because on the post-band guns, on the post-90 guns, they only stamped the little wheel 2.5 and 4. Now the funny part is the steps are still there. The steps, they use the same step screw and the same little castle bolt to 0 your elevation on this thing. There's a big Z-spring under here that provides the downward pressure forward of its axle. But apparently they didn't think that you needed to shoot past 400 meters with this rifle, because they only graduated the elevation knob out to 400 meters. It's a very nice sight system and very sturdy, protected very well by very large aluminum ears, which to some people's opinion makes the rifle look ugly. I think it makes it look sturdy. I am working on a K2C copy, which is a product improved K2 that I haven't shown you yet, where we've just simply milled the whole rear sight off and then notched the back of it so that the flippy lock still does what it's supposed to do. All right, we'll set all that stuff aside, and we will show you the differences between the early morning and the early night. Miss Molly and the House of Blue Light with these particular bolt carrier. The charging handles between all the K2 types, AR100, K2, DR200, Max 2, all exactly the same. They do not interchange with the direct impingement guns K1, K1A1, and AR110C. They don't fit. They're not the same. They're not the same item. Don't try to mix them up because you will be disappointed. This, I do not know why they did it this way. The original guns, as they came in the early 80s, this carrier is out of this early gun at the very bottom, has a roll-pinned gas piston extension. I call this the gas piston extension. They call it the operating rod in the nomenclature. This is not an uncommon thing here to have a broken gas piston. Like I said, it's a customer's gun. Doesn't surprise me one bit. I'll be putting a new gas piston in this later. Typically, there's about 3 more threads, and then there's a cut in the end of it, and then the threads are actually tapered. This one is broken, and this piston will be thrown away. Why they did this, I have no idea. And we'll pull one of the ones out of the other gun so you can see what I'm talking about. It wasn't really necessary. I'm not really sure whether there was a design failure or the Korean engineers didn't think it would hold together. But the way the DR200, the last few years of imports of the K2s and the DR200s all go together, it's just like this. Real simple. It's a simple gun. It's a stupidly simple gun. It's brutally efficient and it works excellent, which is why I love the platform and why I'm the self-described smirking leader of the Daewoo cult. They're just idiot-proof. I mean, anybody who can figure out how to change a tire can take these guns apart and put them back together. Except for pulling the barrel is probably the toughest part, and even that's not all that difficult. But this whole thing goes together like this. That's how you put it in. You slide it into the upper, and you slide the charging handle in, and it's in its opening on the side here, where it's got this little slot, and then you let it go into battery. That's it. Well, apparently the early guns, they had some misgivings that the would not stay together under fire, under full auto fire. So what they did was they came up with this, and I'm glad they got away from it because I don't really like it. I've never known it to be a problem. My biggest issue comes from when people want to replace the thing with something more like the more modernized or product improved version, and they can't because these things are not interchangeable. You can't put these two in there. So it is exactly the same as the other, except it has a cut cam pin and a cut here to clear that, whereas this doesn't need it because the whole assembly comes off. So that's the end of this video, and I thank you for watching, and please subscribe if you like, and as always, go out and make some empty brass. Thanks.